everyone, and welcome to week 12 of Draw and Paint for Life. This week we're looking at the art of, okay, I'm going to mispronounce another name. It's spelled Joan, which, to you and me is Joan, but he's a man, he's Spanish. His last name is Miró, so I'm pretty sure it's like John, or, Jean or something, because it's not Joan. But, so Miró was an amazing sculptor and also a painter. And he lived through the Spanish Civil War. And his sculptures have a lot of cones in them. So as I was looking for ways to bring cones into this week's lesson, I picked him as our artist for the week. And we're also going to be painting cones. A cone is a triangle that through contoured line and a circular bottom, you bring the illusion of a three-dimensional object to a two-dimensional idea. 2 dimensions is paper, 3 dimensions is the world. So we're going to be drawing ice cream cones and painting them. But first I want to take you through the color of the week. It's one of my favorite colors, which is blue violet. It's such a gorgeous color. And we're going to look at what happens with blue violet when we combine it with other things. Children, thank you so much for watching these videos. Please feel free to leave me a comment. I'd love to say hello. And also subscribe if you'd like. And that way you'll know, or your parents will know, when we have a new video. And we have one every week for every week that we're in class. So I'm super excited to get down into the painting now. So here we go. Hey there. All right, here we go, week 12. Just a quick review of the colors we have looked at so far. This was phthalo green. Let's have a little look at that. Phthalo green. This one is marine blue. Let's see if we can get a good look at that. Marine blue, I love that color. Here again, this is some phthalo green. Okay. This was cobalt blue, one of my favorite colors. And the differences between these blues is rather subtle, but once you get to know them, you'll be able to really make the distinction fairly quickly. This is ultramarine blue. The one that is they used to have to grind it from lapis lazuli. Here's cerulean blue. Okay. And then this week, we have the magical color called blue violet. There it is. Oh, I love this color. Oops. Let's put the wrong thing in with it. Let's have a nice look at it. Nice long line of it. See what it looks like when it layers a little bit. Oh, it's such a beautiful color. Okay, so that is blue violet. You can find it right in the middle of your watercolor palette across from the orange. So here's what happens when you combine it with black. Okay, I'm going to pull my black from down here. I actually should wet these a little bit more. Watercolor is so much easier to use when it's wet. So a little bit of black. Okay. A little bit more of this. You see that? Kind of makes like a purpley gray. It's quite lovely. Going back in to the blue violet. Now we're going to take white. And I'm rinsing my brush pretty clean after each use, because if you want pure color, you really have to rinse your brush. So again, blue violet, and we're going to put some yellow. I'm going to go with this lemon yellow and put a little bit of the cadmium yellow too, and see what happens. Isn't that cool? Let's put some more blue violet on it. Kind of almost becomes like an olive green, because essentially in blue violet you have red and you have blue, and then when you add yellow, you have all 3 of the primary colors, which means it's going to go brown. It becomes a tertiary color. Tertiary means there's 3 colors in it. So a little bit more blue violet, and we're gonna put some blue red in, this alizarin crimson. Pull that across. Oh my gosh, how gorgeous is that? So deep, so beautiful. A little bit more blue violet on top of it. And then we're going to take the blue violet and combine it with a little bit of ultramarine blue, which is pretty much like your standard blue in terms of painting. So you can just see what happens there. It just gets rich. It gets just this gorgeous rich blue. I feel like that happens with everything that you add ultramarine blue to. It just makes it rich. So there you have it. This is what happens when you take blue violet with black, with white, it becomes lighter. With yellow, it kind of goes olive green. With alizarin crimson, which is a blue red, it goes kind of like a plum color. Almost a maroon though. And then with ultramarine blue, it becomes a very rich blue. So there we go. Color mixing for the week. Okay, so let's move on to this idea of cones. And I've got a beautiful piece of watercolor paper here, the kind that we have in the classroom. And I'm not sure if you like working big or small. I always pretty much like working big, but you know, I want you to feel super comfortable. Again, paying a little bit of attention to your workspace. I like to keep my box here, although I do move it around all the time. Now, my water's a little bit dirty, but I'm just gonna kind of roll with that. And just keep in mind, if you want your color to be pure, change your water fairly often. And we're gonna start with, actually, you know what I'm gonna do this week? I'm not gonna use a marker. Actually, am I gonna use a marker? Actually, I am. Here's what I'm gonna do. I wanna just illustrate this concept for you, okay? So you've got something that's a triangle, okay? Now this has a pointy bottom, right? Triangle. How does a triangle become a cone? It becomes a cone when you imagine an oval or an ellipse on the top of it, okay? And I'm just gonna darken this in just so you can start to see the illusion that you can create, okay? So right away, it looks like a snow cone, right? Then if you follow this line, this curved line, and you make curved lines all the way down it, all of a sudden it's popping off the paper. It's like, whoa, where did that come from, right? And then you can even put lines like this. You know how you get a waffle cone sometimes on your ice cream cone? So just lines like that, and those lines are called contour lines. And you spell contour, C-O-N-T-O-U-R, tour, like a tower, contour, okay? So, and then it's super easy just to go up here and put like a big wig on the top of it, right? And turn it into an ice cream cone. That's pretty simple. Now, if you want to add to this whole idea of movement and motion, let's look at a little bit of paint, okay? So I guess we'll go brown. I'm not crazy about brown, but we'll kind of like try to mimic the color of a waffle cone. So I'm gonna take a little bit of brown here, a little bit of yellow, a little more brown, okay? And I'm just gonna pull it across, okay? And I'm gonna go heavy in my color on this side, okay? And that change in color, which is also called value, which has nothing to do with how much something is worth. Value in art language means light to dark, okay? So I'm gonna keep my value on this side fairly dark. And then I'm gonna grab some white from down here, okay? And I'm gonna lighten up my paint, okay? And I'm actually gonna put a little bit more yellow in it too, okay? Come across the top and just pull the paint across, all right? So that I've got dark to light, and then I'm gonna blend it, okay? And I'm gonna go back in a tiny bit and make this part just even a little bit darker, okay? So that it looks like it's turning. It's turning, okay? We could even take a tiny bit of black just to kind of fool around with it a little bit and just see like if we could really get this thing popping. I had this teacher in art school who was like super like anti the color black in terms of painting. He always felt like it was cheating. And you know, I don't even know what that means. So, yeah, I think that actually works. Black is a very underutilized color in my artwork. So, and I'm going to take a little bit more white here and just almost pop these shadows a little bit. There we go. All right. So, I don't know what color ice cream I can make this. That's going to cover up this piece of black. But you know what? Let's go Blue Moon, okay? And I'm just going to grab some blues and maybe even my blue violet and see if I can get this to cover. Oh, it's not bad. Okay. So for cones, this whole idea of a cone, which is one of the geometric shapes that we're looking at this session in Draw and Paint for Life. We've done the square, which is very related to the rectangle. So I think I did those both in the same one. The circle, which is a sphere in 3 dimensions. The triangle is the cone. And the we started with a cylinder. Cylinder is like a can of soup. This purple is coloring up this marker really nicely. So there's my Blue Moon, which is probably like totally the wrong color for ice cream, but whatevs. And then I'm going to go back in, now that I know I can cover it, I'm going to pull some white and just kind of soften it a little bit and play with the color. Now, anytime you add white to watercolor, you lose the transparency. It essentially becomes what they call gouache, which is G-A-U-C-H-E. Okay? I love watercolor for its transparency and for the fact that it's just so unpredictable. But a lot of people like gouache. I almost never use it. But just so you know, when you do add white to it, you've gone from the realm of watercolor to the realm of gouache. And that is our ice cream cone. So, again, a little bit of review. You've got a triangle. And you can make the bottom pointy or you can stretch it out. And you just put an oval on the top. Contour lines. We could even like turn this upside down. Have a look at that. It becomes like a party hat now. You could put a face on it. Let's and some eyes. And play with the hat a little bit. Maybe have it have like a pom-pom coming down. It's kind of fun, isn't it? So think about all the different things you can make with a cone shape. It's like a big stocking hat. That's really fun. It kind of makes me want to just like hop in here with some color. I know so many of you were into that. Those elves that were at your house all the time at Christmas, those elves on the shelf. Now you know how to make an elf with a hat. And there we go. So that's the lesson on cones, contour lines, shading, the illusion of 3 dimensions. Thank you so much, children. See you soon. Here's a look at some of the sculpture of Joan Miró.
A painter creates. Within the confines of the 4 edges of the canvas is a fictive world, another dimension, with its own sense of space, perspective, and internal scale. The sculptor, however, creates a presence which lives in our world. It shares our space, and its scale we measure against our own. Joan Miró, the sculptor, over the span of his career, created such presences, sometimes comical, sometimes totemic, and sometimes so grand and powerful they command the space about them. Miró sculpture was largely composed with diverse found objects, elements with no prior correlation to one another, but he creatively assembled them, cast them in bronze, and created wholly unique beings, the likes of which exist nowhere but in his art. For Tête, he used a twisted cellophane candy wrapper, and for Femme, a tube of white glue, the kind any child would use, and that is surmounted by a giant seashell. The two works are undeniable beings. The whimsical Tête invites you to come close, it's human scale. Femme, however, is a monolith. It's towering, it's indifferent, it's primal. His spectacular, mysterious, and looming personnage gothique, Oiseau Éclair, is constructed with a massively inflated yoke for a body and a nearly impossibly enlarged corrugated box for the head. This being is like a sentinel, immovable and impossible to challenge. While Miró was one of the great and most prolific painters, draftsmen, and printmakers of the 20th century, he was, as these extraordinary works prove, a sculptor.
And I really wanted you to see this because it's a Chicago sculpture. It's just across the street. It's on the south side of, across from the Picasso, which is in Daley Plaza. And this sculpture is called what is it called? Like Sun, Moon, and a Single Star. And it's actually really cool. It's located between two buildings. And if you're downtown with your parents, ask them if you could possibly go and see it. It's a sculpture. It's a piece of sculpture that belongs to our city by a world-renowned artist, and I think you should know about it. So here's a little video. And here's a super short little video about somebody who uses triangles to create the illusion of space. It's super cool, check it out. More triangles in a kaleidoscope, just for you. of cones that shows the use of line in establishing a three-dimensional form. Super cool, check it out.
Let's look at how line direction can have a big impact on your drawing. Here we've got 5 very flat, simple cones. But by drawing these curved lines, we automatically show that there's texture and show which direction they may be leaning. And you can apply this to a lot of different objects, their surfaces, but that's too deep. Let's just go ahead and keep this as a simple doodle and outline it and add some color with watercolor pencils. And that's it. Cool, huh?
And there you go. Cones, three-dimensional forms, the art of Joan Miró. Thank you so much, children, for making art. You're amazing. And I know that I say it all the time, and it's true every time I say it. Your art is important to the world because it brings beauty and light with it wherever it goes. So thank you for making it. Have a beautiful week. Draw and paint for life.